Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we're diving deep into one of the most epic movies in cinematic history, Avengers Endgame. This is part 1 of our detailed recap, where we'll break down the events leading up to the Avengers' final mission, the aftermath of the snap, and how Earth's mightiest heroes begin their journey to undo Thanos' destruction. Get ready for an emotional, action-packed journey filled with suspense, sacrifice, and unforgettable moments. In 2018, Clint Barton, who is under house arrest following his actions during the Avengers Civil War, guides his daughter Lila in archery at his homestead, while his wife Laura and his 2 sons prepare a picnic. Suddenly, Lila vanishes into ash, leaving a panicked Clint alive and alone. In the 3 weeks since Thanos decimated half the universe's population with a snap of his fingers, Tony Stark and Nebula are adrift in space on the Benatar, their fuel and supplies dwindling. As Stark, still injured from his fight with Thanos and close to starving to death, records a message for his fiancée Pepper Potts in preparation for his demise, Carol Danvers locates the disabled spaceship and brings them back to Earth. Stark reunites with Potts, Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, Bruce Banner, and James Rhodes. Rocket Raccoon joins Nebula as they mourn the fall of their fellow Guardians of the Galaxy. Stark furiously confronts Rogers, accusing him of being the one who disbanded the Avengers, and as a result, they were unable to stand united during their conflict with the Mad Titan. He questions why the Avengers only do their best after the worst. Has already come to pass, Tony passes out due to exhaustion. With a tip from Nebula about her father's location, along with a snap-like energy signature that was detected 2 days prior, the team head into space for the Garden, intending to take the Infinity Stones back and reverse the destruction. They discover Thanos, now horribly scarred, alone and undefended, cooking a meal. They launch an ambush, quickly pinning him down and cutting off the arm wearing the Infinity Gauntlet. It has been emptied of its stones. Thanos reveals that he had destroyed them using their own powers, which nearly killed him, as he considered his work done and wanted to remove the temptation of using them again. Although suspected of lying by Rhodes, Nebula vouches for her father, as he is never a liar. Surprised by the affirmation, Thanos reconsiders his torturous treatment of his daughter, but he is then immediately beheaded by Thor. Although the Mad Titan is dead, they have failed to accomplish their mission of resurrecting his victims and have no choice but to accept defeat. 5 years pass, and the surviving population have yet to cope with their losses. Rogers now runs a support group for people to try help them come to terms with what happened. Stark and Pepper Potts are now married and are living in a remote cabin with their daughter Morgan. In San Francisco, Scott Lang escapes from the quantum realm when a rat activates controls left behind by the Van Dyne family before they vanished. Lang wanders through the disheveled city and realizes something terrible has happened. He approaches the Wall of the Vanished, a massive memorial containing the names of everyone in the city who vanished in the snap. He frantically searches it, hoping to not find Cassie's name, only to find his own, as no one remaining knew what happened to him. Scott rushes to Cassie's house and finds that she is now 5 years older and a teenager. Father and daughter tearfully reunite. At the Avengers compound, Romanoff now commands the team as they perform various assignments. Rhodes informs her of a recent Mexican cartel massacre carried out by the still grief-stricken Barton, expressing his concern over how far their former comrade had fallen. Barton has been on an assassination rampage that's taken him around the world. Lang arrives at the compound and reveals to Romanoff and Rogers that although 5 years had passed, he only spent 5 hours in the realm. He proposes that they could find a way to exploit the realm's time-bending nature to travel into the past and retrieve the stones from different times. But since the 3 have no knowledge of quantum physics, they seek out Stark. Initially declining to help them, as he believed it would mean putting his daughter Morgan in danger of being erased from existence, Stark later decides to spring into action after coming across an old photo of him and his late protege Peter Parker. He successfully develops a time-space GPS device based on an inverted Mobius strip. Stark consults with Potts on his new discovery, who encourages him to do what's right for everyone else. Meanwhile, the other Avengers recruit Banner, who merged his intellect with Hulk's physique to run time travel tests on Lang using the quantum tunnel housed in his van. The experiment does not turn out as expected, as Lang constantly shifts between different ages. Afterward, Stark arrives at the facility with the GPS and returns Roger's shield to him, signifying their reconciliation, but makes it clear he won't sacrifice his daughter to undo what Thanos did. Rogers agrees. The remaining Avengers begin to regroup. As Nebula returns to New York, Banner and Rocket travel to New Asgard and recruit Thor, who has become an overweight, depressed, and lazy drunkard, traumatized with his perceived failure to stop Thanos. Romanoff goes to Tokyo and finds Barton, who has massacred a group of Yakuza as part of his vengeful crusade against criminals who survived the snap. Rocket and Stark build a time machine, while Barton volunteers to submit himself for a test run into the past. Grabbing a baseball mitt from his homestead, he successfully carries it back to the present as evidence that their plan works. In the past, he hears the voice of his daughter Lila, but returns to the future before he can interact with his family. The Avengers plan out their time heist, using points from their past to pinpoint locations for the Infinity Stones. Romanoff realizes that the space, mind, and time stones can be found in 2012 New York. The Reality Stone is in 2013 on Asgard, and the Power and Soul Stones on Morag and Vormir, respectively, can be found in 2014. They split into 3 teams and travel back in time to begin their missions, mindful that they only have a finite amount of Pym particles, since Hank Pym also perished in the snap. Rogers, Stark, Banner, and Lang arrive in an alternate 2012 in the midst of the Battle of New York. Banner approaches the New York Sanctum and finds the Ancient One, who refuses to lend the Time Stone to him. However, she relents after learning that Doctor Strange had surrendered it to Thanos in the future, knowing Strange wouldn't have done so if there wasn't a grave reason. At Stark Tower, Lang and Stark attempt to steal the Tesseract, but loses it to Loki, who uses it to teleport away. Rogers obtains the scepter from Strike possession by feigning Hydra affiliation, but is forced to fight his 2012 self, who confuses him for Loki. After defeating his past self, Rogers rendezvous with Stark and Lang, with only enough Pym particles. For one more trip each, Stark and Rogers decide to go back further to Camp Lehigh to an alternate 1970, where they have another shot at obtaining the Tesseract and more Pym particles. Lang is left with the scepter to return to the present day. At the SHIELD base, Rogers stealthily obtains the particles from Hank Pym, but runs into Peggy Carter's office while evading security. He tearfully watches her as she works in her office. Meanwhile, Stark encounters his father Howard after obtaining the Tesseract. With the latter's wife Maria expecting a baby, Tony, under the guise of Howard Potts, offers parenting advice, saying that the good times he had with his father are all that mattered. Before they part ways, Tony hugs his alternate father, having finally obtained his closure. Arriving on Asgard in an alternate 2013, Thor experiences a panic attack after seeing his mother Frigga, recalling this is the day of her demise. Rocket encourages him to settle his grief and help him extract the ether from Jane Foster's body, but Thor runs away, leaving the raccoon to do it himself. Thor unsuccessfully attempts to hide from Frigga and runs into her, who knows that her alternate son is from the future. Sharing a talk, Frigga lectures her son on the importance of failure, advising him to follow his own path rather than try and live up to what he was supposed to be. Thor attempts to warn his mother about her impending death, but she silences him. As Rocket returns with the ether in hand, Thor shares one last hug with Frigga before reaching out to retrieve Mjolnir, finding that he remains worthy of wielding the hammer. And that wraps up Part 1 of our Avengers Endgame recap. The heroes are gearing up for something huge, and in Part 2, we'll break down the epic time heist, the return of lost allies, and the ultimate battle that changed everything. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss Part 2. It's going to be legendary.